Hi everyone, and welcome to In Deep Geek Live. Welcome to another one of my series of live streams looking at characters in the Winds of Winter. This time we've come to Cersei. Now, as always, what I thought we would do was structure this around questions that I've got from my patrons. Patrons always get priority questions here. I will try and pick up as many questions from the chat as we can going through. But why don't we start by looking at where Cersei is? It's always a little bit hard just trying to distinguish where she is in the books or where characters are in the books compared to where they were on the show. So Cersei in the books is in King's Landing. Joffrey's dead. Tyrion's escaped. Jaime is off in the Riverlands, and Thomond is king. We've got Margaery Tyrell there, who is now engaged to Thomond, and Cersei, although she's comfortable and in a position of relative power, she is jealous of Margaery, and she is worried about the Faith Militant. And she is also just generally not as in control as she would like to be. Kevan Lannister is the hand of the king, who is generally a competent person, but he doesn't necessarily rate Cersei. So she is mother of the king. That is her role. Now, what happened was with the Faith Militant, as we know, the High Sparrow, they grew in power, and Cersei saw a chance to frame Margaery and just try and get her out of the picture. So she framed Margaery for sleeping with lots of people. Margaery, sure enough, got arrested by the High Sparrow. Cersei wants to show that she's magnanimous. It's nothing to do with her. So she goes off and visits Margaery and then gets captured by the High Sparrow while she's there. And then she spends most of the book actually in the jail. The Faith Militant have captured her. She's there with Sister Nella and people like that. While she's in there, she does get visitors, so she does get an idea about what's going on in the world. And while she's at it, she sends out a message to Qyburn, who is there saying the time is ready. The time is now to release the zombie mountain, effectively. And she sort of bargains with the High Sparrow, the High Septon. She's there basically saying, well, okay, yeah, I might have slept with these people, but I didn't do those other things that you're accusing me of. And she manages to get an agreement that she can come out from the cells, she can go back to the Red Keep, and in return that she's going to have a trial at a later date. So she does, and of course that is the Walk of Shame. And it happens quite similarly in the books to how it happened on the show. She's there's the bell, there's the shame, and she's completely naked and she has to walk through the streets of King's Landing, and she tries to be proud, keep her head high and all the rest of it, but ultimately she can't. She breaks down very near the end, and then before finally she does get into the Red Keep. And that is largely where we leave it. So that's the position. She's now back and safe, but she obviously now has got a huge grudge against the High Sparrow. The Tyrells are there jostling for power with the Lannisters, and so she's in this position where she has to work out what she does next. The other thing which happens in the background in the very last chapter that we get, the epilogue, is that Kevan Lannister, Hand of the King, is murdered by Varys, who is then going to be effectively framing the Tyrells for it. So what we're going to have when we come back to the story is we're going to see Cersei, who is immediately going to be trying to take on, as she always does, this role of her father. You kill a Lannister, then you're taking on all of the Lannisters, and so she is then going to have a grudge against the Tyrell. So that's the situation we're going to be facing coming into the next book, into the Winds of Winter. Along with all of that, we've got the things that I was talking about last time. We've got down in the Stormlands, Aegon the VI, young Griff, has arrived with the Golden Company. They have apparently, at the beginning of the Winds of Winter, taken Storm's End. They are going to be a huge threat. Storm's End is only a couple of weeks' march away from King's Landing, and clearly that's where they're going to be heading next. So there is a lot going on there. That's the situation. We did get a few super chats, so let's see if I can work my way through some of them. Let's just hang on just one moment. So we had, first of all, Alejandro Martinez, thank you so much, saying just a small contribution for all the excellent content. Thank you for all you do, Robert. Thank you. I really appreciate that. We had one from Didelphi Morphia saying, and thank you, Didelphi, saying, I have a tinfoil. Cersei will get eaten alive by the White Walker zombie. What do you think, Robert? Can we hope for this happy ending? No, I don't think that's how she's going to die. I will get on later on in the live stream. I will roughly work through this chronologically if we can. I will definitely get on to how she dies later. I don't think she will get killed by one of the White Walkers. I think that it will be a play out of a Valonqar prophecy, not exactly like we're expecting perhaps, but that's where it's heading. So no, I think that she is, in the books as on the show, going to steer as far away from all of those others and the whites as she possibly can, but in so doing get herself caught up in some stuff that is perhaps just as dodgy and evil. Qyburn with his experiments, and then, as we'll come on to in a bit, Euron as well. So I don't think that's how she's going to die, but she will, I'm pretty sure, die in this. Juanita Bryant, thank you so much for the super sticker of unicorn. Thank you so much. And then we've got, saying Juanita Bryant, $200. Thank you so much. That's an amazingly generous super chat, saying, I dated the rock and roll doctor. What is his name? Wow. So, thank you. I'm incredibly grateful. Thank you. Taste Georgia, saying, I find her personality to be understandable. This is Cersei, as she is a doctor. Sorry, I'm still thinking about that other one. I find her personality to be understandable as she is a symptom of the patriarchy. Do you think her character is George R. R. Martin's commentary on patriarchy? I think there's a lot of the story is George R. R. Martin's commentary on patriarchy in a way, but Cersei is very much her father's child, and she, probably more than anyone else, feels very personally that she has not got what she deserves in a way. She does not understand why Jaime should have been the one to inherit. Obviously, currently is outside the line of inheritance, but she didn't understand why he should be in the line of inheritance and not her, when he just wanted to go off and fight things and she wanted to be a ruler. So she didn't understand that at all. She is all the way through a lot of this trying to be what she considers to be what a strong leader is, which is her father. Now, is that a commentary on patriarchy? Perhaps in a microcosm, it's very much though a character-driven thing. My general take is that George R. R. Martin is critiquing the patriarchal structures across the piece in this story. You have got, it's not just, yes, Tywin might be one of the most obvious examples of like this patriarchal figure, but we also have Randall Tarley and even characters who we think of as being relatively benign, like Ned Stark, still kind of buy into this and still agreeing to send their daughters off to get married to people they've never met and all the rest of it. So it's everywhere across the story. But yes, Cersei's is perhaps one of the ones where it's most clear and obvious. Cat May thank you so much for super chat saying tinfoil. During Cersei's atonement, she cuts her leg/foot, leaving bloody footprints, and then walks through feces and dirt. Will we see another infection? She and Ned were shamed and injured in the same place. Foreshadowing. I don't know. I think it's clearly symbolic. The fact that she's leaving bloody footprints going through King's Landing. My take is that I don't think it's going to be something as blatant as the foot, although I've got a really good question on this later, which will perhaps tie in with this, so we'll try and remember this one for then. But I think it's more that she is leaving her bloody footprints through King's Landing. And so as she escapes from it, she is still, it's like leaving a bloody handprint somewhere. She will, I think, very soon in the Winds of Winter, or maybe halfway through the story, move away from King's Landing, but she has left her bloody footprints all over it. That, I think, personally, is what the symbolism of that is that she is there walking through the dirt and the grime of the city, but she is leaving her mark on it. So that's my personal take there. I think that she and Ned were shamed and injured in the same place is quite an interesting one. I mean, I don't think Ned would consider himself to be shamed, and I don't think. I mean, it's not the exact same place that they were injured, but yeah, I think that the balance between those two characters, which was there right from the very beginning. Theirs was the sort of the two oppositional forces in a way in the first season, and they represented the two houses of Stark and Lannister all the way through. So yes, there is definitely a possibility that George R. R. Martin was playing on that one as well. Have a quick flick through. Stephen Dillon asking, does she know about Marcella's attack? Can't remember. Yes, I think she does. I think this is one of the bits of information. There was an attack in Dawn. This is all part of the Arianne subplot, which is a book-only subplot. There was an attack there. I think this is one of the bits of information that she was given when she when she was in the prison, and I think that she was told about this then. Catherine Miller saying, hello, Robert, first time catching your live stream. Well, welcome, particularly if this is your first time to anyone, your first time watching these live streams. It's fantastic to have you, so welcome. Your videos have been great for keeping me sane in quarantine. I'm really pleased. Great for falling asleep to as well. Yeah, lots of people say that. I don't. If you want to watch my videos to fall asleep to, you are more than welcome. I'm glad that I can provide some sort of service, particularly while we're all locked down in various ways. Higa Herga, and Higa Herga, thank you, by the way, for Patreon. I very much appreciate that. I can hardly wait for her to die. I am so tired of reading her chapters. It's like reading Stalin's diary and his descent into paranoid madness. Yeah, it is a bit, but at the same time, I kind of enjoy it. It's well written. And that is something I always find. So there are some characters, I'm sure we're all the same with the Song of Ice and Fire. There are some characters I look forward to reading their chapters. I might not like them. I might not enjoy the thought processes that are going on, but they are definitely protagonists, definitely driving stuff forward, definitely making stuff happen. And that is what Cersei is. Cersei is always there, and she's always got views on things. And for me, it's entertaining. Her point of view chapters are always entertaining. But yes, she is definitely descending into something. You say paranoid madness. It's certainly something close to that, I would say. Yeah, it's a descent from where she was to start with, which was not a good place, and then she's heading down to become convinced of things that she can only guess at, like Tyrion is out to kill her and things like that. Those are the kinds of things that move from being just stuff that she thinks might be the case to actually she becomes convinced of them. Juanita Bryant saying Drogo takes Dany to a shy. If you're meaning Drogon, then because Khal Drogo didn't obviously take Dany to a shy. If you're talking Drogo, I don't think so. I don't think we will. I think George R. R. Martin has best part of confirmed that we're not going to go to a shy now. We might see it in sort of flashbacks or thoughts from people like Melisandre, but we're not actually going to go there. So no, Drogon is he's taken her off into the Dothraki Sea, and then he will bring her, I suspect, down to back down to Meereen. So that seems to be where he's going to be going. Ty Farnsworth saying, George R. R. Martin went into significant detail describing and fleshing out Lady Dustin in Dance with Dragons. Do you think she or her backstory will play a larger role in the story? Yeah, we're moving away a little bit from Cersei, but happy to answer this one. Absolutely. So Lady Dustin, for those who don't know, she's a character in the North. She knew Ned Stark back in the day, and she was the lover of Ned Stark's older brother, Brandon Stark, before he got engaged. So, and she was very much in love with him. Now, the person she eventually married, Lord Dustin, was one of Ned's companions who went down to the Tower of Joy with him, and Ned did not bring the bones back up north. And this very much annoyed Barbara Dustin, and she has got a huge grudge that she's kept going for a couple of decades now against Ned Stark. Now, this is important for a couple of things, partly because it's reminding us that Ned was hiding something with the Tower of Joy. It's just subtly bringing it back to our attention once more that he did bring back Lyanna Stark's bones. We're reminded of that, but he did not bring back anyone else's bones. So there's that. There's also a reminder that Ned Stark's bones have not yet arrived at Winterfell. They are making their way north. They're probably somewhere in the neck at the moment. So they will head up north as well. And it also kind of puts her in this this place where she is one of the lords, the Northern Lords, who are stuck in Winterfell at the moment. So she is one of the key people, and George R. R. Martin had to flesh out a few of these characters for us to understand all of the politics that were starting to happen in and around Winterfell. And there's a lot going on there with the Grand Northern Conspiracy. So is she going to be important? Yes, she is. I don't think she's going to be hugely major as a character, but she is important as a part of the northern political landscape, and also to be reminding us of Ned's bones and Lyanna's bones, but which will become important later on in the story. Let's just see. I think I had one more to go. I've got two more. So Dominic Vaughan, was Cersei ever capable of being Tywin with teats and being a reigning queen? Were circumstances and her own personality always going to oust her? Oh, this is nature versus nurture. This is the kind of thing we talk about in Westworld, which is now finished, although it has been renewed for season 4. So was she ever capable of it? Well, she probably, but whether she would be a good leader is a completely different matter. The fact is that she's very entitled, and she's got a much higher view of her own capabilities than she probably should have. Those seem to be the biggest problems that she has. So whereas Tyrion, for example, is very happy to be learning, to be gaining information from other people and all the rest of it, Cersei always seemed and seems to be of the opinion that she knows best, without necessarily taking on other people's expertise and all the rest of it. So that, I think, would be her fatal flaw in terms of being a leader. Could she have learned? Well, yes, if she'd had a better upbringing, if she had some better role models growing up and all the rest of it, absolutely. Is there still a chance for her? Well, possibly, but the way that the combination that we have of who she is as a person and how she was brought up did lead her to the position that she's in now, which is not as certainly not as an empathetic leader, and also not as a particularly competent one, I would say. Juanita Bryant says, "Call me Mrs. Robinson." Thank you, Mrs. Robinson. Okay, I think I've caught up on no, and Juanita Bryant saying, "Thank you again. This is very generous of you." Saying the North remembers. Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of the things that's there, connecting in with the Barbary Dustin issue, is that the North remembers the Starks. They kind of like twisted that around. It wasn't the North remembers wasn't just that the North remembers the Starks, but as a sort of a catchphrase, the North remembers. Yeah. Stephen Dillon's asking, would you consider Arianne and Cersei dramatic foils? Yes, I don't think that they're going to come into actual contact one with another. So Arianne she's in a very similar position. So show only people won't have come across Arianne. But Arianne is the daughter of Doran Martell. She feels or felt through all of the time that she'd been growing up that she was being overlooked because her father kept on trying to marry her off to completely inappropriate people, and she kept on saying no. The reason for that, it turned out, was that he'd already promised her in marriage to Viserys Targaryen, and he had a much bigger plan in mind for her, that she was going to be Queen of the Seven Kingdoms. But he didn't tell her that, and so she grew up slightly begrudging the fact that she wasn't getting what she thought she deserved. Where we got to the end of where the books at the moment is the fact that she is now very much in the forefront of the Dornish plan. Thorin, her elder brother, who had been sent off to woo and bring back Daenerys, has failed, so she is now going to be the great hope of Dorne. So are they dramatic foils? I suppose in a way, although she has come good. Her father isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, Doran, but at the same time, he was trying to get her into a position of power. And the Dornish custom is a lot more egalitarian, that men and women can inherit equally, depending on whoever's the oldest, not depending on gender. So yes, there is a clear comparison that you can draw between them, but I don't think it's an intentional one. It's just one that I think we can perhaps draw out from this. Axel Verland, thank you so much, saying, love your content, keep up the good work. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go to some questions from my patrons. And Sabrina Hazelwood, did the Walk of Atonement have any lasting effect on Cersei? Did it change her? Well, I think it's too soon to see exactly in the books, because as I say, in the books, she's only just got through it. But I think what it will do is it will just harden her heart more. I think it will make her more who she is, more set on revenge. She had to completely debase herself just to get back to a position of safety. And I don't think she's ever going to want to give up on that position of safety anymore. So I think that she's going to be a lot more shoot first, ask questions later kind of person than what she was. She was trying to play a clever, subtle little game, and that hasn't seemed to have worked So, yeah, I think that she's just going to get slightly more, if anything, slightly more brutal. But I don't think it'll change her innate character. A couple of questions from the chat. Stephen Lovejoy saying Tyrion in A Dance with Dragons escapes contracting grayscale and the Pale Mare despite intimate contact with both. Plot armor or something to do with Tyrion's immune system? Good question. So Tyrion, he was in a position where he perhaps could have caught grayscale. He didn't. It could just have been John Connington did. So it could just be coincidence. The Pale Mare, it's not that everybody around him has been dying from the Pale Mare. He has sort of been kept away from it. So it's partly plot armor. The thing, I don't know whether this is what you're hinting at, but one of the things with Targaryens is that most diseases they're, if not immune to, then they're certainly, they've got higher immunity to. So it's possible if Tyrion is a Targaryen, and we talked about that a lot last time, so I won't go over all of that this time, although I'm verging on doing another video on it because I got so excited by it last time. Going back to this idea of is Tyrion a Targaryen, I think I've got a slightly different view now. I think I've decided, but that's by the by. So does this imply something? I don't think so. I don't think it does. Does it imply plot armor? Well, yes, it definitely does. But I think it means that he sees a lot more death and devastation, and this will slowly have an impact on who he is. Juanita Bryant again, thank you so much, saying, have you seen this hair? Hello to Kyle and Gemma. Is it my hair? I don't know how my hair's looking today. I could probably have a look, but yes, the quarantine hair is coming along. It's starting to get curly at the back, actually. It needs a trim. And hello to Carl and Gemma. I will pass on your hellos to Carl and Gemma next time I am chatting to them. And Maura Lee, thank you so much for the super chat. Not the super chat, the super sticker. Thank you. I really appreciate Maura. I did get your questions. I will come to them when I get to them in the patrons' questions. But Maura, thank you. You know how much your support means to me. Didelphi Morphia, how did the Faith Militants come to power in the books? Thanks for the nice review. You're welcome. In terms of how they came to power in the books, again, it's roughly the same. Actually, this was an attempted power play of trying to use the faith, which for the lifetime of people like Cersei had been pretty ineffective, it has to be said. So you can kind of understand why someone who only sort of looks from her own experience would think that the Faith of the Seven is pretty ineffective. If you go back looking at events that happen in Fire and Blood, then they're not. They're doing armed revolutions all over the place. So this is the kind of thing that someone like Cersei, because she's not as well read as someone like Tyrion, wouldn't necessarily understand. So broadly the same as in the books, in the shows, what I'm saying. Alexandra Bruno Gonzalez, thank you so much for the super chat. I didn't see a question attached to that. I will have a quick flick through in just a moment, see whether I can see one. Ariel Winchester, thank you for the super sticker. I really appreciate that. Lots of people talking about my hair. Thank you. And let's go to a question from, I think I did have one more question from, yes, Kat May. Thank you so much. Does the Valonqar have to be Cersei's brother if it comes to fruition, or could it be Tommen? I've got a couple of questions about the Valonqar in a little bit, but in terms of just this bit here, the Valonqar, this is it's a throwaway word almost. It's a word in High Valyrian, and the word means little brother. Probably. Now, when we say probably, that's because we do know that some words in High Valyrian, particularly when we're thinking of the prince that was promised, Mr. Aemon says, we got it wrong because it could be, it could be either male or female. Now, we don't know, and I think George R. R. Martin left it deliberately vague because, as he has said, he's not a philologist. He is not a language expert. He understands language, but he's not a language expert, so he has not created all these different languages. He just he uses words and phrases that sound like they're coming from the same language. So he hasn't invented the entire High Valyrian language. So we simply do not know whether or not the word Valonqar could refer to a younger brother, your younger brother, a younger sister, your younger sister, any younger brother. We simply do not know what that means. The only bit that we've got is younger brother. So it's deliberately vague, is what we're saying. So does that mean that it could be somebody other than Cersei's brother? Yeah. There's nothing in the wording of that says that it couldn't be. Could it be Thomond because he's the younger brother out of her children? Yeah, it could be. We simply haven't had that that level of detail from George R. R. Martin. He has left it deliberately vague. Juanita Bryant, thank you so much for the super sticker of a cat, that looks like. Thank you. Voice of Reason, shave it into a mohawk. We're still on the hair, are we, guys? Yeah, well, I do have the clippers. So at some point, maybe next week, you'll see. You'll see if I've done anything. Yeah, okay. It's starting to annoy me now at this length. It has to be said. Okay, let's get to a couple more questions from my patrons. Chase. Let's go with one from Chase. In the show, Cersei blows up the Tyrells and the Faith Militant, which leads Thomond to die. How do you see this plot playing out in the books? As I personally think Thomond is too young for his show plot. And do you think Cersei will have another pregnancy, perhaps Euron's baby, if they team up? Somebody else asked about pregnancy later, so I'll cover that bit later. In terms of the first bit, what will happen with the Tyrells and the Faith Militant? So, as I said at the beginning of this live stream, the situation we've got that Cersei is faced with is that she has got a huge grudge against the Faith Militant and the High Sparrow, the High Septon now. She will want to get revenge. That is the nature of who she is. She is also very much wanting to make sure that Margaery is taken out of the scene. And when she discovers what has happened to Kevan Lannister, I'm sure that everyone will believe what Varys has set down there for this trail for them all to follow, and I'm sure that she will believe that this was the Tyrells who did it. So she will want to kill or destroy the High Sparrow. She will want to destroy Margaery and the Tyrells more broadly. The more I think about it, the more likely something like that appears. That she no longer has anyone to hold her back. She's all the way through this in one way, shape, or form. There has been somebody there who's been stopping her, whether it was her father who was just in control, whether it was Tyrion who was like working around to prevent her doing stuff, whether it was Jaime who was not always particularly successfully, but her conscience in a way, or whether it's Kevan Lannister who's just there being competent. Incidentally, that was the reason Varys gave for killing him. He's basically said it's not personal, but you're just doing a good job and I had to get rid of you, which, slightly backhanded insult, but a backhanded compliment, I guess. But it's, so Cersei doesn't have anyone now to hold her back. So she will almost certainly do something rash, I think. Varys will know she's up to it, but I suspect that Varys won't stop her. because he is backing Fagon, who is going to be marching up the King's Road. And if she does something which destroys infrastructure of King's Landing, turns the people of King's Landing against her, then so much the better, as far as she's concerned. And that, incidentally, will then turn the Tyrells, whatever is left of the Tyrells, against her, which is going to be another massive sort of talking point. Juanita Bryant saying, Andy hates his cousins, the Coen brothers. Maegor was right. If you're talking about Maegor the Cruel, then Maegor the Cruel was not right about many things, it has to be said. Lady Pushkin saying, no, Robert, please leave the fur. I'll consider it. Okay, so question from Jazz Singh. Thank you, by the way, Juanita. Thank you. So you're being very generous today. I hugely appreciate it. Thank you. Question from Jazz Singh. Hi, Robert. Hope you're well. Simple question, but do you expect Cersei to flee King's Landing upon news of Fagon's arrival? And if so, will she be our POV in Casterly Rock? I think that she will flee once she realizes that she's going to lose. I think that is the most obvious thing. The Lannisters don't actually have huge amounts of soldiers there. Varys is working against them. Fagon is going to be arriving with actually quite a large army. I think it will become obvious that she will have to leave. And leave she will. So perhaps that will be her parting gift. The bloody footprints across King's Landing, if you like, will be blowing up the Great Sept or something like that, some big move. Will she be our POV in Casterly Rock? This is, I assume the backdrop to this question is that George R. R. Martin has confirmed that we will see Casterly Rock in the last two books. Now, the implication of the way he says that is through a POV character. She's the most likely, I think. If she's going to go anywhere, it will be Casterly Rock because she wants to be safe. And Casterly Rock is pretty much a safe place. There's, yes, it's in the Heartlands, the Lannister Heartlands, but it also, as a castle, it's pretty strong. It is literally inside a massive rock. If you imagine something like Ayers Rock on a slightly smaller scale, that's what Casterly Rock is. And then they just tunneled inside it. The mine is underneath it. They tunneled inside it, and so it's not a castle they've built up and around something. It's something they've built inside an existing rock. So yes, I think that we will see, and we might see from some other characters later on, but I think hers is going to be the first time we see Casterly Rock in the main. Juanita Bryant, thank you again, saying Varys is a Blackfire. Dragon lit his funeral pyre. Varys could well be related to the Blackfires or the Targaryens in some way. I think I did cover this in a video a long time ago, called something like "What Did Varys Hear in the Flames?" And I posited there the idea that the reason why he was plucked from the streets to be a sacrifice was that he might have some king's blood in him. There certainly are some obscure little references, particularly in book one, that suggest that he might be sort of Targaryen-y. They are that, for example, his head is described as being like an egg when referencing across to Aegon the Fifth, and also we get there's another one where Catelyn's remembering that the person who finished the construction of the Red Keep and was the only person who knew all of its secrets and ins and outs was Maegor the Cruel, a Targaryen. And then suddenly Varys appears, and he, of course, is the person who now knows all of these secrets. So is he some kind of link across to the Targaryens? So there are a few hints, as well as a few other sort of more circumstantial things. So it's entirely possible. Travis Michael, thank you, saying, hey, Robert, thanks for holding these streams. Take some of my stimulus money. Oh, yeah, in America, you got some stimulus money, didn't you? Fantastic. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Which characters' chapters are you most excited for in The Winds of Winter, and why? Well, I think all of them. I don't know. I'm always excited for Tyrion chapters. I love Tyrion as a character. I love reading about him. I'm fascinated by the idea that the next Jon chapter we have is actually going to be a ghost chapter of Jon in Ghost. I think that would be an amazing chapter to read. And I also want to know what's going on with Fagon and his invasion. Those are the areas that at the moment are fascinating me the most. Slightly further into the book, whenever Dany gets back to Meereen and is faced by this huge list of interesting people that she has to deal with one after the other. There's Tyrion, what's she going to do with Tyrion? There's going to be Jorah, who's returned, what's she going to do about that? What about Moqorro, who's come to said, hey, I'm representative of the Priest of R'hllor, we think you're the Azor Ahai reborn. What's she going to do about that? What's she going to do with Victarion if Victarion survives? All of these people that she's got to be dealing with one after the other, and I'm really looking forward to what will probably be more than one chapter, but her chapters back in Meereen, I think, will be absolutely fascinating. Stephen Lovejoy, thank you, saying, who will be the one to kill Cersei? As I said, I will get onto her death later on in this. Love the Wids, thank you very much. In terms of who will be the one to kill Cersei, I think what I will say now, though I'll give a fuller answer when we get onto it, is that this is going to be connected in with, or something that could be interpreted as fulfilling the Valonqar prophecy. So that is where I'm at. Juanita Bryant saying Casterly Rock was a Tyrion Lannister feint. If that's a reference to the books, to the TV show, so this was a misdirect. It was the way that one worked. It was one of those things that actually Jaime and Cersei got Tyrion to attack that, and then went over to attack the Tyrells instead. Juanita Bryant, my first cousin named Sordora, she ain't no dodo. Not sure I understand that one, I have to admit, but thank you so much. Sydney Rose, great to see you. Thank you. Saying, great to see you, Master of Stories. Thank you very much. Will Cersei still be alive by the time Dany's squad arrive? It seems like a lot of closer people want her dead. Okay, so the iteration of events here, as I see it, is that with Cersei is in King's Landing, whatever she does against the Tyrells, the High Sparrow, and all the rest of it, that happens first. Then we get the invasion from Aegon. They come in. Cersei escapes. She heads off, probably to Casterly Rock, as we were saying. Then Aegon sets himself up in King's Landing, and then after that, a reasonable amount of time after that, then Dany arrives with her forces. So that's where I think Cersei will still be alive, but she will not be in King's Landing at that point. So Dany will come up against Fagon rather than against her. Vigstable, thank you so much, saying, do you think Cersei and Euron alliance will be brought about in the same manner in the books, i.e. capturing the Sand Snakes? I think the balance of power is going to be very different in the books. So on the show, she was queen, and Euron was trying to win her over. And so she set him these tasks that he had to go and do for her and to win her over. That, I think, is going to be very different in the books. In the books, I think that she will not be in power. She will probably have Myrcella with her. Myrcella's on her way back at the moment. She will probably have Myrcella with her. And as the only remaining Lannister child next in line, not Lannister, actually, she's technically a Baratheon. technically, legally, I should say, then I reckon she will make her queen in the West. Again, this is one of the things in Fire and Blood. We've had there are times when there were queens in different parts of Westeros. I suspect that we will see this happen again. So I think that she will set her up there. But the Lannisters will be without many allies. It has to be said. She will, outside the Westlands, basically have no allies. So what happens then? Then you get Euron, who I agree will probably come to her again and probably propose some sort of alliance, but he will be coming in a position of power. He is the king of the Iron Islands, and at this stage he will probably have already sacked Old Town, which is massive, and he has got the biggest navy around Westeros. And he probably has been doing some other big magic off the south coast that we don't yet know all the details of. So I think he will come to her in a position of power. And whereas she may think that she's the one with power and he has to come to her, actually it's the other way around, and it'll be more of an alliance. And if anything, Euron is going to be the more powerful one in that group, and she will be the one who has to kind of prove herself to him in some way. Don Ward saying, I'm sorry, Marcella's a dead girl walking. She's not getting out the snake's mouth. That's the other option. I mean, I have to say it's she may, so Cersei may get hold of her and take her off to the Westlands, but the fact that she has been there in Dornish control, and let's not forget Doran Martell hates the Lannisters with a vengeance, and if he has decided finally, as he will at some point quite soon, that he's going to throw his weight behind Fagon, then, and Cersei is in the way of Fagon taking King's Landing, and Doran has got the ability to kill Marcella, then I think he will do it. So yes, I think that is a very valid point. Thank you. Let's go to another question from Katie Smith over on Patreon. Cersei has what could easily be described as a religious experience watching the Tower of the Hand burn. Taking that and her experience with the Faith Militant into account, do you think there's a chance she could become a follower of R'hllor? Even if she doesn't actually become a convert, do you think she would allow the Red Priests or Priestesses to fill the void once the High Sparrow is dealt with? It's an interesting question, because I think that there are... She clearly does enjoy the fireworks, so to speak. I think the fact is that after she's destroyed the Faith Militant, got them out of the way in some way, then she will not be in a position of power there for long enough for actually to be able to enact anything. And added to which, there aren't that many priests of R'hllor there. What is probably more likely is that she would get the Alchemists Guild. Now, the Alchemists Guild, we kind of occasionally, we see them scurrying around on the show with the little skull caps and things like that, carrying around those little things of wildfire. They are an ancient guild in the middle of King's Landing, who for a long time kind of vied with the maesters to who are the sort of the closest and best advisors to the kings of the land. And it seems more likely to me that she would side with them than with R'hllor. That is what Aerys II, the Mad King, did, for example. He didn't suddenly take on worship of R'hllor, and it feels like the people as a whole in the Seven Kingdoms don't really give them much chance there. So that seems to me not a religious thing, although I can see why you could interpret her adherence to that kind of thing as near religious, but I think that it's much more likely it will be a practical and pragmatic. She is aligning herself with Qyburn, who is the arch scientist, the almost sort of a, he's not anti-magic. I think he just sees magic as being a part of the nature of the world, and he has to understand how it operates. But then going across to Euron, who I think that she will side with eventually, he has got this completely different perspective, which is that his view is that he wants to do away with all religions because he wants to be the god. So there again seems to be more where she is at. She's the person who has largely destroyed, if it goes the same way in the books, has destroyed the Great Sept, a huge amount of the Faith of the Seven. There's a good chance that Euron, if he's going to sack Old Town, will also sack and destroy the Starry Sept. So between them, they will have done huge amounts of damage to the Faith of the Seven. So they naturally will kind of link up in that way. Ty Farnsworth saying, where are Ned's bones? Where will they end up? Ned's bones are currently en route to Winterfell. They are, I think, somewhere around the neck. I think that they will emerge as part of a party coming north from the neck at some point, perhaps at the end of the Winds of Winter. I think we will see Howland Reed. I think that we will see Mage Mormont and whichever Glover it is, I can never remember which Glover it is, went with her on a mission into the neck. And I think that they, with Ned's bones, will head up. I think there will be a symbolism there with Howland Reed finally accompanying Ned's bones all the way up to Winterfell. So that's, I think, where they are and where they are heading. Turbo saying, can George R. R. Martin really subvert subversions? In my subversions, have my subversions already been subverted? I do not know whether he can subvert your subversions. If your subversions have already been subverted, I would suggest that the job's already done. But thank you so much for the super chat. Marty Dodger, thank you. I've been waiting for this stream all week. It would be a dream for Cersei to flee to the Rock and run into Lady Stoneheart and the Brotherhood Without Banners, as they'd most likely push towards the west after the Riverlands. Yes, so I agree that I think she will head off to the Westerlands. I think Lady Stoneheart, I will get onto Lady Stoneheart in one of these live streams probably in a few weeks' time. She, I think, is largely staying in the Riverlands, and that I don't think that we're going to see her interrupting Cersei on her route to the west. I don't think that's the way this story is going to go. Lady Stoneheart seems most likely to me to be either getting hold of the Robb Stark's widow, Jane Westerling, as they head to the Westerlands. George R. R. Martin has suggested that perhaps she will be in the prologue to The Winds of Winter. And that, for me, suggests perhaps something happens on the way. And it's either Lady Stoneheart or the super pack of wolves. I think that one of those two will probably be involved there. So, no, I don't think that Lady Stoneheart will. I think that her view is going to be a lot more focused around the Riverlands and looking up as far as Walder Frey, because I think that she does want vengeance, and I think the first part of her vengeance is against Walder Frey. So what Arya did on the show in terms of getting rid of the Freys, it may well be not Arya, it may be Lady Stoneheart who does that in the books. Juanita Bryant says, hold my beer, I hang out in biker bars. Thank you so much for that. I think I had one more question. And that is from Geese Mulders, saying Bran thinks about knocking Tommen down with a wooden sword in the first book. Could this be foreshadowing for the weirwood's involvement in Tommen's eventual death? If in doubt, blame Bloodraven. That's a really good question. I would have to have a look at that symbolism again. I've not really thought about that. My take is probably not. I think that he will die somehow in connection with what's going on down in King's Landing now. So whether it's exactly the same, it's possible. He is a little bit devoted to Marjorie, and so there's no knowing what he would do. If she died, I don't think that at the moment the Weirwood Network is manipulating events to that extent down in King's Landing. I think it's focusing attention a lot more at the moment on things happening at the Wall, north of the Wall, in Winterfell, places like that. So that's where I think that their focus is. I think that's me all caught up on questions from the chat. Okay, so let's go to a question from Maura Lee, saying, what do you think will be Jaime's role once he hears about Fagon landing in King's Landing? Will he go back and get Cersei to safety? I think this is a good question. I have to admit that I've not yet fully worked through where Jaime's movements are going to be in the Winds of Winter. So there's a good chance, I think, that he may well hear about the fall of King's Landing and then head back to Casterly Rock. That makes sense to me. I think that he will, at some stage, need to get Widow's Wail, which is currently technically Tommen's sword. And I think that this is probably how he's going to do it. So I think that, yes, he will, once he has escaped from Lady Stoneheart, as I suspect he will, then I think that he will probably head down to Casterly Rock, because that's what his default is. But I don't think that he will stay there long. Juanita Bryant says, Jon Stewart's lead writer named Elliot Callan. He follows my social media. I said, hold my beer. There you go. Thank you so much. I don't know what Jon Stewart's up to these days. I know he's not doing the Jon Stewart show anymore, but thank you. Mark Lutchbur saying, see the video from Alt Shift X on Sir Pounce being Azor Ahai. Sir Pounce is one of the most fascinating characters in the entirety of A Song of Ice and Fire. I'm not going to get into it now. But yeah, absolutely. And that's a fun theory, it has to be said, from Alt Shift X. Leila A. Gushi, thank you so much. This is from Patreon, saying, regarding Cersei's quest for power, I've noticed that Cersei does not travel in Westeros. She has apparently only lived in Casterly Rock, Winterfell, and King's Landing. It would seem this would ultimately be a weakness if she doesn't understand the different regions of Westeros. Robert, Joffrey, and Tommen never did a progress as the Targaryens did. Not sure if this means anything, but A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms and Fire and Blood indicate that rulers turd the land. Any thoughts on this? I think this is a fascinating idea. So, no is the short answer. We haven't got any definitive proof of how much traveling Cersei has done, but it appears that she mostly spent her time in either Casterly Rock or King's Landing. Yes, we saw in book one, she went up to Winterfell and back, and that involved a lot of traveling through the Riverlands up to the north. And there is one other instance in the backstory where she went to Estermont, which is in the Stormlands. So she has traveled around a bit, but not sort of like a formal tour of everywhere. This does seem to be something that the Targaryens did, and that Robert Baratheon didn't seem to see that as hugely important, probably because he was great at winning the crown, but didn't really know what to do with it once he had it. He wasn't really wanting to be ruler, but he just felt he should be king. So has this affected Cersei? I think what has affected more is how you visit places more than where you've visited. I think that when she has visited places, she has kept herself very much within her privileged bubble. When you get someone like, say, Tyrion, when they went to King's Landing, to Winterfell, his experience was completely different to hers. She went there, she was in this golden carriage, and she had like these wonderful rooms, she had banquets, all the rest of it. Tyrion went out to Wintertown, hung out with people he probably shouldn't be. He was in the banquet, but then he went outside and chatted with Jon Snow outside. His experience was a very different experience of Winterfell to hers, and I think her experience wherever she went was very limited. Even within places like King's Landing, she didn't. She saw people like Marjorie Tyrell get out of their carriages and go and talk to people. And this idea filled Cersei with disgust. Why would you do that? So she didn't. She understood how the Game of Thrones was played, but she didn't understand the people that were around her because she never actually mixed with the people. And that, for me, is the more important point. Yes, I think it's true that she probably didn't go to many other places. But even if she had, I don't think that she would have engaged with the kinds of people and experiences that she needed in order to grow as a person as well as a leader. Juanita Bryant says, pledged to JR of Geek Chat 1. I mean, if you could be pledged to anyone, this is $6.66, the devil's own pledge. If you're going to pledge money to anyone or pledge allegiance to anyone, JR is as good a man as any. A fine human being indeed. Let's do one more question, perhaps, and then we'll do just to let you know what's going on or coming up on the channel. Second Sister says, I've been wondering about the theory concerning Tyrion losing his tongue. Incident, this goes back to a question we had in the chat a long time ago. Doesn't seem like a Cersei question, but stay with me. That theory states that Jaime lost his fighting hand, Cersei lost her beauty, and therefore Tyrion will lose what he holds most dear, his tongue. I've seen a video by Secrets of the Citadel which states a different theory. Apparently, when Cersei was born, Jaime came a couple of minutes later, holding Cersei's foot. Jaime lost his hand. Cersei hurt her foot during the atonement. Will she lose her foot and thereby lose that connection she had with Jaime? This, I think, is a fantastic. I'd not come across that theory from Secrets of the Citadel before, but I think it's a fantastic one. What I think I talked about this briefly last week when we were talking about Tyrion was that the theory, how far I would definitely go with this is that the theory that Tyrion has to lose his tongue because Cersei was losing her beauty and Jaime lost his sword hand is good, but only if you see the three of them as the vital connection in all of this. If you see the vital connection as being between Jaime and Cersei, then you do not have to go that extra length to include Tyrion in this. So I don't think that the logic flows necessarily across to Tyrion, that if those two lost the things that are most important to them, then Tyrion necessarily has to lose the thing that's most important to him. I think the connection across between Jaime's losing his hand and her losing her foot is a wonderful one. I've not come across this before, and it's fantastic. And going back to the question, I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was from in the chat from earlier, this idea that perhaps it might become infected because it got cut when she was walking through the streets of King's Landing and she was walking through dirt and all the rest of it. Maybe that needs to be cut off. I do. it works well for me because the link is there in who would do the cutting off, because Qyburn is the one who would do this for Cersei, obviously. So there is a link between the two of them, but the physical link will be gone. The hand and the foot will be gone. So that I love that. I love it when I get new perspectives or theories that I'd not come across coming out from the chat and from my patrons. So thank you very much. That's a run wild with that theory, guys. I like it a lot. Cersei Goldenfoot, says Holy Dragon. Drogon, that's a great idea. What would she do then? Would she get a golden foot put on? That's entirely possible. Okay, so Maura Lee, this is a super chat before we went live, saying, please say aluminium kraken tacos, just because you say it so beautifully. Well, thank you, and that you're welcome for that. Saying, thank you, Robert, for all the fabulous content and stories on both channels, especially this last live stream that you and Joe Magician did on the Faceless Men. Fabulous. Yeah, so I was going to talk about this very briefly. I've sort of done a soft launch of a new series of videos called Secrets of various things or people. And I've done 3 so far. I did Secrets of Winterfell with Joe Buckley. I did Secrets of Old Valyria with Amanda the Disputed Lands. And just yesterday, I released Secrets of the Faceless Men with Joe Magician. And they are a slightly different style. I record them in conversation, so they're a bit like a live stream. It's me and this other person having a chat through for about an hour or so. I've quite liked how they've gone, but I would love to know what you think, whether I should do more of them. Do put comments down in the comment section who I should invite on, what things you think I should be discussing. I'm looking at places or groups of people that are mysteries somewhere, somehow along the line in the world of Ice and Fire. So if there are people who are particular experts in particular places or groups of people, I'd love to hear from you and see whether I can get them onto the channel. That would be fantastic. So that's one thing that's going on. I've said Westworld is drawing to a close. I'm doing one final Westworld live stream this Sunday at the same normal time that I do my live streams. So if you want to chat about the finale, about what happened, just trying to unpick what was going on all the way through the season, it's going to be me and Hax Dogma, who's been with me on my live streams all the way through the season. So please do come along. I think I've set it up already. So if you have a look on the channel, you'll be able to find the link. What else is going on? So I'm also doing my Lord of the Rings videos. If you like Lord of the Rings, I've got a few videos coming up and looking at sort of questions and theories within the world of Middle-earth and Lord of the Rings. First one I'm going to be tackling is the classic, the fan favorite theory of why didn't they take the eagles to Mordor? If you've got eagles who can fly everywhere, why didn't they just take an eagle and fly them into Mordor? There are reasons why, and I'm going to be going through those reasons. And then I'm going to be looking at, which is perhaps slightly more nerdy, but I love it. Where did the Entwives go? You remember from the books, Treebeard was very sad because the Entwives, we've lost the Entwives. Where have they gone? Have you seen them? He couldn't get over the fact the Entwives had gone. So I'm just going to be looking at where might they have gone and what's going on with that in the story. The other thing I would just say is patrons, thank you. I say this every week. I mean it every week. I cannot carry on doing what I do without your support. If you are interested in supporting the channel, or if you want to get access to stuff I do just for my patrons, there is a link down in the description. Basically, my Patreon, like most Patrons, works on a number of different levels, so you just pick the level you want to be at. If you just want to support the channel, if you want to get a chance to get your questions answered here, then there's a $2 level, $5 you get access to all of the audio I do for this channel. $10 level, you get a thank you down in the description. If you look down in the description, you see my thank yous down there, and a chance every now and then to vote on what's coming up, what sort of videos I'll be making in the future. And there's a $30 level where I will get in contact with you, and we can discuss a bespoke reward, perhaps agree on a video that I could do that you've been looking for. So if you're interested in that at all, there is a link, as I say, down in the description. Juanita Bryant, again, thank you so much, saying Asimov completist, hashtag being a green mother, AU Pack Mule. Is AU Pack Mule in the chat? He is a fine gentleman if he is. And I think I had another couple of questions. So Tom Butler saying, oh no, I'm late. Oh well, I'll start from the beginning. Thanks for the great content as always, Robert. See you in an hour. Well, welcome, Tom. You've now reached the point at which you did your super chat. So thank you so much. I very much appreciate that. Stephen Dillon saying, what do you think the deal with Zombie Mountain's head is? There's a theory that it is Rob's head on Gregor's body. It's weird since his skull was sent to Dawn. Okay, so I have been thinking about this. I think the answer is that Zombie Mountain's head did go to Dawn. All the indications are there. It's an outsized head. It seems right. Fine. So whose head is it on the Zombie Mountain? And I think the spooky answer is no one's. I don't think he's got a head. He never removes his helmet. I think we get very caught up in this idea because we see on the show he sort of takes it off and all the rest of it. In the books, no. And you can, there's you get all these random comments. You know, he never speaks. He never seems to breathe. Never takes it off. You can't see anything through the gaps in the visor and all the rest of it. I think there's not a head there. I honestly think that's what's going on. Qyburn has worked out how to animate a body, and if blood is not pumping through the body, if it's some, I don't know, sciencey, magic-y thing he's got animating the body, it doesn't need the head. So that's what I think is going on. I think it simply has no head. Winter Bryant, thank you so much for the super sticker. Cake, do love a bit of cake. Thank you. Andrew K is saying, loving the Secret series. Hope to see Grey Area on there soon. I will give her an ask. Let's a quick flick through. Okay. Robinson saying, why did Dawn receive a skull and not just a cut off head then? Well, this seems to be the way that they do it. Barristan Selmy, when he's thinking of, because, you know, otherwise it would be just like this kind of rotting flesh thing going on. Barristan Selmy, when he's got the body of Quentin Martell all the way over in Marine and wants to send that back, he sends the bones back. That's what he says, I'll have to just send the bones back. So that seems to be just the way they generally do it. They talk about, if you think about it, where are Ned's bones? That's just what and that just seems to be the way that this seems to work in their world. Juanita Bryant, thank you. Very generous with all these super chats. I'm feeling slightly embarrassed by them now, but thank you. That's very kind. There's absolutely no need. But saying Piers Anthony picked up a hitchhiker, hashtag being a green mother. Not sure I understand that one either, I'm afraid. But thank you. That's incredibly generous. Andrew K, there seems to be a vast amount of parallels between Cersei and Rhaenyra. Do you think that gives any clues with Cersei's current arc? I'm trying to think. So Rhaenyra is the character within Fire and Blood who sort of claims the throne and nobody recognizes her and all the rest of it. Now, I'm pausing because I've not thought this one through yet. I think it's a good possibility. I think that the analogy isn't an absolutely correct one. I think that where Cersei's going to go is actually more Night's Queen kind of vibe, where we've got, hopefully I might be able to tie this round to some things I want to talk about later on as well. But we've got the idea a couple of times of her being sort of pale white. We get this once in the Valonqar prophecy, talking about wrapping hands around your pale white throat, and also we get in the visions that we see in the Arianne Greyjoy's chapter, pre-released chapter from the Winds of Winter. We see this queen with Euron, who we think must be Cersei. That seems to be the most likely. And again, she's described in this kind of like pale white way. So that's my personal guess is that that is taking her more towards a Night's Queen kind of imagery, because Euron himself has got almost a Night King kind of imagery himself. He's sort of like an echo or a shadow of the others in many ways. So that seems to be where that's going. And it's the imagery, particularly with the sort of the Euron ones and the Arianne visions, those particularly seem to be very similar to the images we get of the Night's King and Queen in legend, of them sort of sat on a throne with all sorts of dead beings. In Night's King Queen, it's sacrificed infants. In this case, it's gods. But the kind of the imagery is very similar between the two. So that seems to be what's going on there. Let's go to some questions from my patrons again. Dominic Vaughan, how do you envisage the Cersei and Jaime arc resolving in the books? Will we get the star-crossed Romeo and Juliet-esque death with Jaime killing her then himself? Also, do you see her outliving Fagon's invasion and the second long night, or will Fagon's invasion dispose of her? I'll do that first, the second bit first, which is that do you see her outliving Fagon's invasion? Yes. So I think that to finish off the kind of the iteration of events that I started with, I think that we've got her dealing with the Tyrells / High Sparrow, then Fagon's invasion, her heading off over to Casterly Rock. Meanwhile, Dany will suddenly come. There'll be confrontations there between her and Fagon. Fagon will be vanquished. Dany will go off and deal with the others. When she comes back, I think by that point, Cersei and Euron will have got together and they will sneak back into King's Landing. And I think that that is going to be where the final sort of a denouement of all of this is going to be coming. So I think that she will survive invasion and the second long night. I think that she and Euron will play the sort of the Saruman role in Lord of the Rings, in as much as they're the second big bad, and that they will be the characters that have to be dealt with in the equivalent of the Scouring of the Shire. So that's where we're at. Then we've got the question. So you asked about Jaime and Cersei's story arc. Had a couple of other questions with this. Heading J saying, I'll ask the obvious question. I don't think it's an obvious question, but quite evidently it is foreshadowed that Cersei will be strangled to death by the Valonqar. Any chances that Valonqar will not be Jaime? Lady Pushkin say, hi Robert, I'm very intrigued by Maggie the Frog's prophecy and see it as Cersei's self-professing or perhaps self-fulfilling prophecy. Do you think Jaime's growing hatred and the realization of what she is will lead Jaime to be the Valonqar? Who do you see as the beauty to cast her down? Daenerys or Brienne the beauty? A few other people earlier in the chat were asking about how she was going to die and the Valonqar prophecy and all the rest of it. So I'll try and tie all of this in one go, if that's okay. So the Valonqar prophecy covers a lot of different elements of Cersei's life. Some of them have a very clearly come true. They're very clear and direct. You will have the king will have lots of children, 16 children or whatever, and you will have 3, and the reference across to what will happen to them. Effectively, they will all gold their crowns, gold will be their shrouds, basically implying you've got this is definitely what's going to happen with Robert Baratheon. You're not going to marry Rhaegar, by the way, which is what the original thing was. This is what's going to happen with your children. So all of that seems kind of set and locked in. Then you get a few that are a lot vaguer. You get the bit with the younger and more beautiful queen. So Daniel also asks with any theories on who the younger and more beautiful queen is. Now, I think that who will cast her down, I think there are a few elements to this. Yes, there is Daenerys. Obviously, Daenerys will be the one who ultimately will cast her down, I think. Marjorie will be the cause of her being cast down in the way that she has done already, because of her obsession with this prophecy. And also there will be Brienne, who is called Brienne the Beauty because in the books she is not a beauty. She's described in many ways, but not as being beautiful. And yes, she is the person who will steal Jaime's heart in some way from her. So that will again cast her down. So I think that this is one of those prophecies that we will be able to look back on once we've got all of the story and go, well, you could interpret this one in many different ways. The Valonqar, I think, is something that we will be able to look back on and say, so that's what that meant. But it is meant deliberately, as we said earlier, to be open for interpretation at this point. So we do not know who it means. We do not know who exactly it could be. It could mean any younger brother or younger sibling, as far as we can tell. So the any chances that it will not be Jaime? Yes, there is a chance it will not be Jaime. I think the idea that this might be Tommen, I don't personally buy into. Yes, he's the youngest brother, but I think that he will be dead long before she is, so I don't think so. Might she be having a baby and die in childbirth, and therefore the youngest will be the death of her? Well, possibly, but that doesn't quite fit in with the hands around the throat. Could it be Tyrion, the little brother? That's what she is fearing. Again, it's possible. But the more you look at it, the person that it seems most likely is Jaime. Now, there are lots of references from both of them when they say we came into this world together, we'll leave it together. They both seem to think that this is the case. Now, yes, we were talking a moment ago about whether their bond has been severed and whether that might be shown literally by the fact that his hand and her foot will both go. That's entirely possible. But I think that Jaime will be there at the end. And I think he may kill her and then himself in some way, but more as a kind of a mercy killing. If she is somehow this kind of raised from the dead Night's Queen figure in some way, which I think is entirely possible. I don't think that she necessarily just has to stay exactly as Cersei is. Then he may, out of horror and mercy, kill her around her pale white throat. That makes sense to me. The other thing which makes sense is, to me at least, is this idea of Arya being the one to do it, because she is on Arya's kill list. Let's not forget, and Arya will be trying to go through her kill list. And if Arya has mastered the art of disguising herself as someone else? Could she disguise herself as Jaime and do it? Well, perhaps she would need to um, get Jaime's face, which probably means killing him first. Or maybe she will be able to master what Jaqen H'ghar seems to do in the books. It's very clear that he just sort of does this, runs his hand over his face, and changes his appearance. Maybe he was just sort of unfurling a face mask in a way that she couldn't realize what he was doing, but that doesn't seem to be what he's doing. So maybe there is another level of how they do it. Faceless men do the disguises, or maybe she is an incredibly powerful skin changer. Maybe she could just skin change into him. All of these things are possible, but I think that the symbolism of Jaime being there and being the cause of her death is so strong that I'd need something better to make the ending seem more satisfying for me. So yes, it's possible that there are that somebody else does it, but at the moment, with the story arcs we've got, that is by a long way the most satisfying story arc. Let's have a quick look. We've got any more things from the chat? I think I did get another one. So yeah, so the Stark and Winterfell, thank you, saying I'll be watching later, but this one is for Dan. We lost our best girl today. Oh, I'm sorry about that. And she would want us to share the love. Well, thank you so much for that. I will buy Dan a treat with that. That's very kind. I'll give him a treat. So there, some love passed on. Thank you very much. Vampirist99, following up on Cersei as a Night Queen, I see some similarities between Cersei and Alice Rivers and Euron and Aemond Targaryen. Oh, okay, so we're dredging the fire and blood analogies here, which is fantastic. So Alice Rivers is one of those characters who is within Fire and Blood, represented as a bit of a witch, basically. Now, that's one of the markers for me. One of the markers of Fire and Blood was George R. R. Martin went heavy on showing us how women were misrepresented through the ages in Westeros, and I think it's entirely possible that Alice Rivers may well have been a magic user, but that does not necessarily mean that she was an evil sorceress, which is the way these things are sort of presented. I think Cersei is everything that we think she is, because the two writing styles are slightly different. We get to see inside Cersei's mind, so we get to actually see what is there rather than just somebody else's representation of her. Yeah, I like the analogy. I'm not sure it holds for me. I don't think it holds particularly well because we can see into Cersei and what she's up to. Dingo Dave, thank you so much, saying, how do you think Cersei will react to the news of Myrcella? Will she believe Doran's version of the tale? No, but I think that Cersei doesn't trust anyone now, and this is the problem: is that she's going to. How will she react? I think that she will carry on down this path of thinking that everyone is against her, and so who are the people that she can trust? At the moment, she thinks that the only person that she can trust is herself. She sort of extends that a bit to Qyburn, and then fundamentally Jaime. This just means that the Martells will be crossed off the list of possible allies. I don't think that they were ever truly on it, to be honest. The Martells have been trying to oust the Lannisters for so long. So no, I don't think she'll take it well. but I don't think it's fundamentally going to change anything. Sasak saying, in Deep Geek, Phil H&A came up with the answer before. Arya will skin change into Balerion the Black Cat and kill Cersei that way. That's the best possible answer we've got. Yes, so Arya can skin change into things. Let's not forget this. She's done it not just into Nymeria, but into lots of different things. Right, let's go to Daniel saying, somewhat off topic, but I saw a theory that the Tyrells are going to be taken down by Randall Tarly siding with Aegon VI. The reasons being due to Mace consistently taking credit for Tarly's victories and the fact that they gave Garland Brightwater keep, despite the fact that he was the one who should have got it. Any thoughts on that theory? Yes, I think. Well, what we have is a fascinating throwaway line from the Golden Company where they say we still have friends in the Reach, and it's clear that they don't mean the Tyrells. So who could they mean? Well, the only two obvious answers are the Hightowers or the Tarleys. And the Hightowers seem to be, as they generally are, playing their own game. The Tarleys, yeah, it's possible that they could come on board. The fact is, though, that when I try and map out what happens with the Tyrells, we get Cersei will overreact against the Tyrells and do something rash. Whether it's exactly the same thing that happened on the show or not, I don't know, but she will do something rash because that's who she is. That will definitely turn the Tyrells against them. Who are they going to turn to next? Well, there's not that many options for them, to be honest. The best option for them to turn to would actually be Aegon. So perhaps that's where they will go next, in which case might Randall Tarly go with them? I don't know. It's sort of a long shot because you have to say, well, where does everyone go after this? Cersei's going to be pretty much abandoned. Daenerys is not just about to invade as she was on the show. She's a long way away. Most people think she's disappeared or dead right now, actually, to be honest. So she's off and away. If people like the Tarleys or the Tyrells are looking for someone who's not the Lannisters to be following, the options are quite limited. The North is largely cut off and doing its own thing. They're not going to follow Euron. They're not going to follow Cersei. Aegon VI is really the big option, and I think he's going to generate quite a large group of followers. I have to say so. Yeah, that's entirely possible. B asks, the Iron Bank will have its due, and a Lannister always pays its debts. Will Cersei's downfall be the cost of paying her debts to the Iron Bank? What kind of dues could the Iron Bank collect from her other than her throne and her money? So the Iron Bank have effectively abandoned the current regime, and they're now effectively backing Stannis to take over. Yes, and the way, let's back up for a moment. The way the Iron Bank operates is that they hold the throne as being who holds the debt, and it doesn't really matter to them who sits on the throne. If Cersei gets pushed off and all the Lannisters get pushed off and away, and someone else comes over, the Iron Bank will just say, okay, you've taken on the throne, you now owe us what the throne owes us. So that seems to be the way it is. So if Cersei goes away and disavows the throne and is no longer there and somebody else is liable, then the debt is not paid to them. What will happen, as I think, is that Aegon VI will come on, and then suddenly he will have to take on that massive crown debt. The question is, where does this come from? well, we do have people who have lots of money for backing. So, for example, Illyrio's got quite a lot, so maybe he could try and sort something out. But yeah, the bit I like most about this theory, if it is a theory, is the sort of again the balance. George R. R. Martin loves balance. Is the Lannister always pays his debts, and the Iron Bank always gets its due. And at the moment, effectively, the Lannisters owe the Iron Bank, so they have to pay it off at some point. And Cersei, if she wants to get backing to be on the throne, will have to pay it off. The idea of her eventually, as sort of happened on the show, taking Highgarden and just sacking it and ransacking it, taking all the money from there. It is yes, the Lannisters might have been the richest family, but the wealth of the Reach is huge, and that would probably be enough to pay off the debt. So if she returns with that, she could then indeed get the Iron Bank off of her back. So that is a way of this happening. Okay, so Henry Fairbairn saying, hello, Robert. After finding your channel about a year ago and enjoying your content, I became a patron a couple of weeks ago. Welcome, Henry. It's fantastic to have you as one of my patrons. Anyway, my question is kind of twofold. Do you think Cersei will also blow up the Sept of Baelor like she did on the show? I've already covered that. And so I think the answer is probably yes, or something quite similar. And do you think Cersei will still be the main character behind the downfall of the Tyrells in the books, given that there are also Tyrells in the books that live in the Reach? So this one, yeah, I can definitely expand a little bit more here. So there are more Tyrells in the Reach. So on the show, it was kind of like they killed all the Tyrells. There's no Tyrells left, just Olenna Tyrell, who they allowed to hang around for a while because she's really cool. But what it's clear seems to have happened in the books, or at least there's a rumor, that at the start of the Winds of Winter, Mace Tyrell has quit King's Landing with a lot of his army and has headed back to Storm's End, which is a curious thing for him to do. Mace Tyrell doesn't always make the best and most sensible choices, but the sort of the backstory was that he was down outside Storm's End. Storm's End was still being held for Stannis all this time, and Mace Tyrell, who's got a history of just like camping outside Storm's End and waiting to see whether anything happened in the name of besieging it, he did the same thing in Robert's Rebellion. He sort of camped outside there again for quite a while, sort of besieging it, then headed back up to King's Landing, having given that up. While he was gone, Fagon appears to have come in and almost immediately claimed the castle and won it. And now Mace Tyrell seems to be heading back. Now, it's entirely possible that Mace Tyrell is just going back to finish off the job that he thought he was doing to start with, but this seems to be an odd time for him to be heading down there with Marjorie in the cells and up for her judgment, her trial very soon, and with the balance of power with the Lannisters very much in the balance. So him going down seems like quite an odd move. So it's possible that he will survive the whatever it is, Cersei's revenge, whatever it is, if it's blowing up the Sept of Baelor or whatever, because he's not in King's Landing at the time. And B, it's possible that actually he's not going to Storm's End to besiege it, but he's actually going there to meet Fagon and switch sides, which would be an absolute mind-blowing way of doing these things, but hey, maybe that's the way they're going to go with this. Will Cersei destroy all the Tyrells? Not all of them, clearly not all of them. There are always more people in the line of succession. I don't think that they'll get rid of Mace Tyrell that quickly, and I think that the Highgarden will still be there. The thing about Highgarden is it's not it's not a castle built for defense. So if somebody does attack it, then they could probably take it quite easily. It's a pleasure castle, really, more than anything else. So I don't think she will. She might herself then later sack Highgarden, as I was saying a few moments ago, but I don't think she'll do it all in one blow. And I think we will probably have some random Tyrells who survive all of this, because there are quite a lot of them around and about. Vampirist99 saying, Alice Rivers starts out married into the ruling family only to be widowed. She was regent, or tried to be regent, to her son, who she claimed was trueborn. Everyone else assumed was a bastard. Yeah, I like that. Actually, that's quite good. So as always is the way, that there are cleverer people who analyze these things more than me in the chat. So thank you for that. That's a really good bit of analysis. If anyone else has got any good bits of analysis on that, so it's not something I've been studying myself, so it's the first time I've come across that. And then following up, saying, additionally, Aemon Targaryen and Euron Greyjoy both have one eye and are full of Night King symbolism. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there. So if others want to add into that, then please do in the chat. Dan Hibbard, do you think that Stannis will have anything to do with Cersei's downfall? Will he find out about her role in Robert's death and then attempt to imprison and or execute her? I think that no, he won't. I think he's a long way north at the moment. He's just outside Winterfell. I think he's focused all up there. And at the moment, he is convinced that he has to first take the north, and second, he has to save the Seven Kingdoms from the threat of the others, and then finally take the throne himself down south. I think that he will manage to achieve probably one of them, the first of that. I don't think that he's going to get all the way down south afterwards. I don't think Stannis is an endgame person in this. So no, I don't think so. I think that his focus is still very much up in the north. Morley, is in your latest video with Joe Magician regarding the Faceless Men, you talked about Qyburn perhaps making more zombie mountain types so that Cersei can have a whole army of these super soldiers. If he is able to do this, when do you see Cersei using this army? Against Dany, Jon, Fagon, the others? I think that she may well get a few now, but ultimately they will come later. I think that Qyburn will bring across all of his equipment and research and all the rest of it over to Casterly Rock. And while they are hiding out there for a book or more, that's the point at which I think that he will be building up this zombie army. That's where we're at, and I think they will use that to take King's Landing, which will then be invaded for the third, fourth time, whatever it is, in a short space of time. It's going to be horrible, King's Landing. It's going to be having so many bad things happening to it. And I think that they will be there, and they will be defending King's Landing from the last group of survivors from the war against the others. So that is when I think that they will come into play. I think I got one more question from the chat. Stephen Dillon, thank you so much, saying, for Holy Dragon. I assume this is picking up a question from someone else in the chat. I really appreciate it when people do that. It's a very generous thing to do. Want to hear more about Willis Tyrell. If he survives and Tyrion is with Dany, he might get leniency, as Tyrion has a soft spot for broken things. Yeah, again, this is the Tyrells. I think I've not spent enough time studying, but I think that Tyrion doesn't bear a grudge against the Tyrells per se. I think that he clearly did against his father, against his sister. So I don't think that we're going to see him. Yes, he's a dark character in the books. Yes, he's got a bad side and all the rest of it, but he's not. He's not vengeful for vengeance's sake. He's not his sister. He hits out when he's angry about something or when he personally feels endangered by something, and he's fundamentally pragmatic. So would Willis Tyrell get some leniency? Yeah, possibly. Tyrion as a character, when we see that the people, when he's a killer, but he kills Shay out of a fit of anger about finding her in his father's chambers. He kills his father when his father basically dares him to by saying the thing that Tyrion said, "Don't say that again." When he kills people, then it's out of either anger in the moment or self-preservation in some way. So that's where Tyrion's at. He's not just this out to get revenge against everyone character. He's a lot more. His darkness is a lot more subtle and a lot more personal than with a lot of other characters. A couple of people saying I'm not in sync at the moment. Oh, okay. Perhaps I am back again now in sync. Good. Devyani saying, do you believe that Cersei will be playing the pregnancy card in the book? And if so, how will it affect Tyrion's plans? The short answer is I don't think we're anywhere close enough yet to this to know whether she might, because the books and the show will diverge so hugely. It's the kind of thing that she could do. The way that the show were playing was that she understood that that Tyrion would never sort of endanger his family fundamentally. He might not like Cersei, but he's not going to endanger his family. I don't think it's going to come down to as personal him against Cersei kind of face off. I don't think that that's where it's going to go. Might she use a pregnancy thing to kind of lure in Euron? It's possible, but the pregnancy thing was one of them. I try not to go too far down over interpreting what was in the show, but it was one of those things that they drop in the show that it didn't really go anywhere, but it felt important. And as a result, it kind of makes me think maybe it is going to be in the books, because the way that the showrunners, they talked to George R. R. Martin, they got a lot of information from George R. R. Martin, and they tried to put a lot of things that George R. R. Martin obviously said into the last few seasons, even though he'd not written them yet. And where they had to make shortcuts, or where they decided to make shortcuts, then they sort of like skirted around things and made up a few little odds and ends here and there to make them work. The pregnancy thing didn't feel like that. They could have just carried on, the whole plot that they had on the show could have carried on without the pregnancy thing, which made it feel a little bit awkward. Maybe that was just bad writing, or maybe it was just that they were trying to cover off a plot point that George R. R. Martin said to them. It feels a bit like the latter. So instinctively, although I've got absolutely no evidence for this, instinctively I think that she will claim pregnancy in some way. But I think we're so far out from that point in the books that we can't figure out yet or see yet exactly what context that will be there for, what she's going to use that for. Jackie Miner, thank you for the super chat, saying, how different do you think it would have been if Dany used Jaime as hostage to negotiate for Missandei with Cersei? This is a show question. So Cersei had Missandei up on the walls of King's Landing, and Dany was then kind of like faced with her, and Cersei killed Missandei. Now, the short answer is that in the show they didn't really give Dany long enough to react to that, to suddenly produce something to do negotiations. Cersei wasn't there in a negotiating mood. Cersei was very much there to try and provoke her in a way, because she had this cunning plan with Euron shooting down dragons and all the rest of it. So that was where it was going. If she had actually had Jaime, then yeah, perhaps it would have been slightly different, and perhaps they could have done a prisoner swap. Cersei definitely did still have feelings for Jaime, but whether that would affect things, I don't think so, because I think Cersei would have just found another way to provoke her. So I don't think it made much difference. But yes, I think that she might have got Missandei out of there. Diego Godoy saying, hi Robert, after almost 2 years of seeing all your videos and admiring your communication skills, thank you. Last week I finally decided to join your Patreon and I couldn't be more happy. Well, welcome Diego, it's fantastic to have you. My question, do you think Cersei will make it to A Dream of Spring, or will we see the last of her in the Winds of Winter? Yes, I think that we will see her in A Dream of Spring, so I think that we will see her. As I say, the broad story arc is revenge against the people in King's Landing. She wants revenge against the High Sparrow, Tyrells. Then the invasion from Fagon and her escaping over to Castle Rock. The building up the reserves, the getting the alliance with Euron happens. Then she heads back in. And by the time she heads back in, we're deep into A Dream of Spring in the second half of Dream of Spring. So she'll have the second half of the Winds of Winter and the first half of Dream of Spring will be her away from King's Landing, and then we'll see her coming back in. So I think she will definitely survive. Maura Lee says, what will be Cersei's move after she learns of the death of her uncle by Varys' hand and the news that Fagon has landed and seeks the Iron Throne for himself? Who will she look to as allies? I think I've largely covered this one off. I don't think she will have many allies, to be honest. The only obvious allies that are possibly there are Euron and the Ironborn. So that's where it is. In terms of after the death of her uncle, she won't know it was by Varys. I'm pretty sure of that. Varys will cover his tracks very well. The news of Fagon landing, I think that she will just assume that he could be dealt with, and then only when he arrives at King's Landing will she then manage to escape. Johanna Hepburn saying, hi Robert, following her destruction of the Tower of Hand, do you think in the books we will see Cersei fulfill the role Dany is playing in the show, becoming the Mad Queen and seeking to destroy what she realizes she can never have? I do think Dany will burn cities in Essos, but if it starts looking like Fagon will take King's Landing, will she use wildfire or any other means to ensure he has nothing to rule over but ash and bones? Yeah, so I think this is entirely possible, as I say. So yes, Dany, I think, will be burning some cities in Essos. Cersei will do something big. As I've said it a couple of times in this stream, but I think that yes, the Great Sept of Baelor explosion is entirely likely. Will Cersei destroy the city on her way out of it? I don't know if she will quite go that far, but I think that Fagon will be welcomed by the crowds when he comes in, and Cersei, they'll be glad to see her go. So I don't think she will destroy it. I think it will survive. But yes, I think that significant chunks of it may well have been destroyed while she's on her way out, because she won't care about it all that much. I've got just a couple more questions from my patrons. So now is a time. Now's a good time to drop any more questions into the chat. I'll try to get to as many of those as I can before we go. But I've got a couple more questions from my patrons first. Maura saying, on the show, Jon, Dany, and the team, along with one of the others, captured. I think. Well, it was one of the Whites tried to meet with Cersei to get her to help Team Jon Snow in the battle with the others. Do you think this will happen in the books? No, I don't. I don't think that big set piece thing they had with her in the in King's Landing in the Dragon Pit, with everybody sort of gathered round and they produced the White. I don't think that's going to happen. So I think it's going to be something along the lines of Cersei is long gone by that point. Dany has defeated Fagon in some way, and then she turns her attention to the north. So all Jon has to do is persuade her to come to the north. What happened on the show was that they had the problem that they didn't have Fagon, so Cersei had to stay there all the way through, and so they had to cover off the tactical problem of Daenerys and what does she do? How does she try and ensure that that Cersei won't sort of consolidate her position and take over the country while she's gone? That won't be an issue so much in the books, partly because Cersei's not there, and partly because Cersei won't be as strong. She won't have as many allies and all the rest of it. So that's a big difference, and I think that Jon just has to persuade Dany. And I think that a big part of this will be Tyrion, who has a soft spot for Jon, but also respects him and knows that he's a man of his word and all the rest of it. And finally, a fantastic question from Leila El Gushi saying, Cersei is one of my favorite characters because she seeks power and has a cruel streak, but we understand some of what has fueled her bad acts. What do you think is Cersei's Achilles heel that might be her downfall? To reference a favorite term George R. R. Martin used recently. So he does like this idea that characters have an Achilles heel, and it is this fatal flaw or weakness that will be their downfall. Cersei has many. She is very fallible. I mean, and I agree completely with your analysis there, is that yes, she's got a cruel streak and she seeks power and lots of other things, but we can understand why. We can see what made her the person that she is, which makes her a fantastic villain. So, and a fantastic character, not just a fantastic villain. But in terms of what her Achilles heel is that partly that she's not as clever as she thinks she is. And partly it's her instinctive trust of Jaime. She thinks that they are one person, in effect. And partly, I had another thought. I can't remember what it was now. Nope, it's gone. But the fact that she's not as clever as she thinks she is does confound her and prevents her from actually building this kind of strong position. Whenever she has a position to build a strong base, she never actually quite takes it. Oh, the third one is the fact that she believes absolutely in Maggie the Frog's prophecy, and that drives her to some crazy ends. But ultimately, as I've said, I think that the Achilles heel that she has is Jaime. And to try and, I said I will see whether I can loop all of this around to what we were saying a long time ago. It's quite literally her Achilles heel, because he was holding her heel. This was how they were born, was she was born first. Jaime was holding on to her heel. So it is like her Achilles heel is Jaime's hold on her, his hand, around her, his hand around her throat as his hand was around her ankle. So that works for me again. The symmetry of Jaime being the Valonqar, Jaime being the one to kill her, works all the way through this for me. That it might be someone else, but it works so well that I think that we need to get something else that works even better. Okay, let's have a very quick check through the chat, see if there's any more. Lady Pushkin saying her Achilles heel is herself. She pushes and pushes and is full of hate and jealousy. Yeah, I think that's quite possibly true as well. Lady Windland saying Cersei's greatest weakness is the belief in the prophecy. If she had never tried to avoid it, nothing bad would have happened. Yeah, it's with prophecy, I say it feels almost every week George R. R. Martin is always wanting us to think it's not about whether the prophecy is true, it's about whether or not people believe it. And Cersei believes this completely, and that is what drives her to so much of the things that we've been talking about. Connor G, I view the Jaime holding Cersei's left foot with his right hand to mean that she will lose the foot to the infection she got from the Walk of Atonement, same as Jaime lost his hand. Yeah, that's what we were saying earlier, that I think it ties in together. I think that's my big takeaway from this is that idea. I think it's a fantastic idea. Leila Agushi, you're coming back on your own question here, saying, wow, I've not thought of Jaime as Cersei's Achilles heel, making the birth connection. Good point. Thank you for a great live stream. And thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Amir Dubai saying she is Jaime's Achilles heel, in my opinion. I think they're both. I think it goes both ways with them. And I think Jaime, we will come on to Jaime maybe next week. We'll see. I haven't decided yet. But Jaime, my general view is that we within the community have bought far too much into this idea of Jaime being on a purely atonement curve. He has been getting better in the books, getting further from Cersei in the books, but that doesn't mean that he's going to end up a long way away from her. He may well come back. It felt sort of clunky in the show because they condensed everything so much, but that doesn't mean that the same overall arc isn't going to happen in the books. I think it roughly will. The fact that that Jaime does reaches a point where he can express his feelings for Brienne, but ultimately he can't break free from his love for Cersei, or his addiction to Cersei, I think it is still a very compelling arc for him. It doesn't have to end happily. In fact, in many ways, why are we thinking that Jaime's arc is going to end happily? Stephen Dillon, thank you so much for saying who is next week's live chat about. Yeah, I was just saying I haven't actually decided yet. It might be Jaime. I think it's going to be either Jaime or Euron. I haven't worked it out yet which way I'm going to go with this one, but probably one of those two. I'll put it up early next week so you can see what it is. Okay, guys, I am going to start to draw this to a close now. If you are watching this a little bit later, then you will find in just a moment somewhere here-ish is a link to other live streams that I have been doing, if you like watching these live streams, and somewhere here-ish is a link to my Patreon. So if you're interested in those Patreon benefits that I was talking about earlier at the different levels, the different things you get, or if you just want to either support the channel or get a chance to have priority questions answered here, that is the place to go. Okay, everyone, thank you so much. Some fantastic questions today and some incredibly generous super chats. So thank you so much, everyone. Take care. I'll see you again soon.